All right, I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Supervisors to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. This meeting's being recorded live on CNET. And next we're up, we got citizens' comments. Do we have any citizens' comments for any items not on the agenda? Any comments? Hearing none. I'm going to go to approval of the agenda. And before we make a motion to do that, I've had a request to add supervisor reports and comments between number 6 and adjournment there. So if somebody wants to make a motion to amend the agenda, that would be great.
I move that we add an agenda item for supervisor reports and to keep that on the agenda.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Any questions? Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. The agenda is hereby amended.
Thank you.
Okay, presentations. We have CNET up first.
Thank you.
Howdy, folks.
You all know this guy.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
I'm Cynthia Hahn. I'm the Executive Director of CNET, and I'm here, of course, with Bob Strauss, who is CNET's representative, Halfmoon Township's representative to the CNET Board of Directors. Every year I come and give an annual presentation to the board, and I placed at your seats tonight the 2021 annual report, which will tell you everything you ever wanted to know and a lot you didn't ever want to know about the CNET organization. So you may read that at your leisure. I think my able assistant is going to proceed through the PowerPoint, and I was afraid that I might not be able to read it, and I was right. So I brought my cheat sheets. First of all, 2021, of course, was the year of the hybrid meeting. Most of our member organizations ended up going hybrid using some form of technology or other. Many of them use the OWL, which Halfmoon Township's been using. Some come up with other solutions. But the point is that really almost everybody is doing hybrid meetings now. And even though for the most part we feel like we're learning to live with COVID, it doesn't look like the hybrid meeting is going anywhere. People really still tend to appreciate that flexibility. The staff of CNET produced 511 programs last year, and that's an increase of about 13% over 2020 for obvious reasons. A lot of events canceled in 2020, so that's why there's that significant leap. We did add Amazon Fire to our viewing options as another over-the-top platform, and the Board of Directors approved an update to the CNET strategic plan last year as well. So those are just some highlights of the organization. Next, there we go. So we are now really doing a lot of YouTube programming. I've listed for you there the organizations that we are live streaming their programs on YouTube, and that does include, of course, Halfmoon. We stream the State College Borough Council meetings using another technology because their meeting room is right on the other side of our office. And so we're able to take those meetings directly through our broadcast server. But everything else that we stream live, we're streaming live using YouTube. And we currently have about 920 subscribers, almost 1,000 to our YouTube channel. In terms of Halfmoon programming, the township last year sponsored a total of 16 programs. 15 were Board of Supervisors meetings, and one was a joint meeting or joint workshop between the board and the Planning Commission for a total of 16 programs.
Cindy, excuse me, if I could just interject there. I think that number of 15 supervisor meetings is a low number for last year as well, because over the last year or two, we were trying to roll it back to one meeting a year there for a while. So you would see, if we had numbers going back, you would see a curve. So just knowing the history of this board up to this point, we've had meetings pretty consistently on schedule, so that number is going to be a lot higher than that 15. So there's more value in it this year.
Yep. And then the bulletin board messages, and we talked about those a little bit, I think, the last time I was here. Half Moon typically uses those bulletin board messages to advertise meeting agendas. We value the messages as 1/10 of a program. And so the total of 27 messages last year equates to 2.7 additional programs. If you do the math, then you come up with a grand total of 18.7, which is considered your sponsorship for the year. The township sponsored about 3.5% of all of the programming by all of our members in 2021. And that is down from the year before when it was 4.9. It was almost about 5% of all of the programs by all of our members. And that is exactly, that can be attributed exactly to what Bob was referring. There were less meetings definitely in 2021 than in years earlier. And this graph is going to show you that. So that's the last 5 years. You can see you had a really high year in 2019, and then last year was the lowest number of programs in the 5-year cycle. So that's what your curve looks like for the last 5 years. That 5 years is important because our funding formula is based on a 5-year rolling average. So when we look at what your financial contribution, your dues are going to be in 2023, we're going to look at your sponsorship between 2017 and 2021. And then for the 2024 budget, 2017 will drop out. And 2022 will be added. So it's that 5-year cycle, that rolling average that we look at to determine what your dues are each year. So between 2017 and 2021, the township sponsored 4.79 of all of the programs by all of our members, and the previous 5-year cycle had been a little bit higher at 5.14. It's not terribly inconsistent, but as Bob mentioned, last year definitely was a low. This slide shows you all of our members over that 5-year period of time, and I have that bright yellow arrow pointing down to Halfmoon Township. The tall green bar that is about the third from the end is State College Borough. They've always been the largest user of our services, and that continues. The second highest user is Center County government. So in terms of where to watch, you know that basically your programs are televised on Channel 7 on Comcast and currently on Windstream. Those meetings, a Thursday night meeting is going to air Saturday at 8 p.m., Monday at 1 p.m., Tuesday at 6 a.m., and Wednesday at 1 a.m. And of course, if your meeting is less than 2 hours long, it's going to air twice in that block. So you have 4 scheduled airings, but if the meeting is less than 2 hours, your meeting will actually air 8 times.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
The programs are also available on cnet1.org on demand. We usually have them up within 48 hours. They're indexed by agenda item. I hope all of you maybe have seen that feature, so you can click on just if what you're interested in is the renovations to the offices, for example, you just click on that agenda item. It takes you right to that place of the meeting, and we keep those meetings online for just about 12 months. We are also available, of course, as I mentioned, on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. So we have a pretty large distribution network. And next, I wanted to show you, These are not cable television viewing numbers because the cable companies consider that data to be proprietary. So I'm not ever able to get any information about how many people are watching you on TV. But we do know that between January of 2021 and May of 2022, you had an average of 126.5 viewers per meeting on our website, cnet1.org, and then you had an additional 135.6 viewers on YouTube during those basically 17 months. I thought I would just quickly give to you a sort of a brief review of what your cable franchises mean to you or franchise. The township has a franchise agreement with Comcast. It was negotiated between Comcast and the 8 municipalities that make up the Center Area Cable Consortium. I believe your representative to that consortium is still Patty. They don't meet very often, but they meet a lot when they're negotiating a franchise. And so all of those townships have the identical franchise with Comcast. One of those things that does is it gives, Comcast is mandated to pay the township in quarterly installments 5% of all of their revenue in Halfmoon Township. So for Halfmoon Township, that amounted to $35,371 last year. In addition, there is a small little fee of 32 cents per subscriber per month that is put on their Comcast cable bills. That money is forwarded to the township, and the township forwards that money to CNET, and that is used for our capital funding. So our members do not have to buy cameras and microphones and computers and broadcast servers. Those purchases are funded by Comcast, not by the township. The township simply contributes to operating costs, not capital. There is a provision in the franchise for an HD channel going forward, and the franchise also dictates that we remain on that Comcast digital guide so that people know what is actually airing. And I think that there we go. Just some little reminders about meeting coverage. Avoid leaning back too far in your chairs. We use these little triangular tabletop microphones for Halfmoon meetings, so that's usually not a problem because those are pretty good at covering distances, as long as people are conscious not to accidentally place papers or something on top of them. The most important thing is reminding anyone who is going to speak to come to a microphone. Members of the audience, the public that want to speak do need to be near a mic in order to be heard, but you're doing an excellent job with that. So I think that is the end of my presentation. Did you have comments?
I'd just like to add that CNET provides a very good service for the township. It provides your constituents with the opportunity to see your meetings without attending a meeting, whether it be through a live stream or the YouTube channel. It really allows the taxpayers access to see what's going on. We do have to remember that there is a large portion of our western side of the township that I hope I'm not stepping on anyone's toes, but it's an aged population that doesn't tend to do the internet as much. So I feel like CNET is their window into Halfmoon Township's government without having to lug themselves all the way here, especially if the weather's bad or if they have mobility issues or that kind of thing. So I just wanted to, just kind of reiterate how much CNET really means to what we do here as far as local government. So, but thank you. That's what I had to say.
Thanks. Anybody have any questions for CNET? thank you for coming in.
Okay, thank
Thanks
you.
for
And
having us.
I really do appreciate you allowing the presentation to be postponed when I wasn't able to make it a
That's
couple weeks
not a
ago. I
problem.
appreciate that.
Anytime.
Thank you.
Thanks, gang.
Okay, next up, where's Mark Franklin Volunteer Fire Company?
Okay, I'm Brian Hockenberry. I'm the treasurer of Warriors Mark Fire Company.
And I'm Jerry Singer, and tonight's hat I'll be wearing the chief of the fire company, also the relief president and the secretary, so.
So I know I sent to Brett, and he said he put in your packets the copies of our operating budget year to date, along with the last 4 years. Things are pretty much, I think, right on schedule. To end last year, this year, somewhere around the same as last year. We have our gun raffle this weekend. That'll be the big bump into our fundraising dollars, which I can't read it on here. Out there, yeah, it's only showing 26,000 now. We did 85,000 last year. I know last year we grossed about 48,000 on our gun raffle, so that'll be a big bump. Ice sales still continue to sell amazing amounts of ice. We sold almost 10,000 bags last year, and we sold 800 bags the weekend of the 4th, so I'm sure we'll be somewhere around 10,000 again this year till it's all said and done. As far as expenses, obviously the biggest expense are the truck payment. That money includes the $15,000 state grant we got for debt reduction on that. That took our balance down. We still owe approximately $184,000 on that.
What year of truck is that?
2017.
Okay. And is that's a engine rescue?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. It was originally it was a 15-year loan. We actually just refinanced it over the winter before rates started going up. Put it on a fixed rate loan because the variable rate was going to scare all of us, and it would have by now already. So it was a 7-year loan, but we're on pace to have it paid off within 5 years between the grants, and we actually send extra money in on the principal every month.
Could I ask you another question?
Yep.
What was the total cost of the truck?
609,000,
Okay.
and we borrowed 375,000.
So you bought it in, what year did you buy it?
2017.
27, so bought it new.
Yep.
Okay.
And that same piece right now would, I don't know if you could touch it for 800 or 900,000, just the increase on everything.
So yeah, as far as budget, I mean, it's always a truck payment and building thing. You know, our building's 30 years old. It's starting to show its age. We had spouting repaired and some roof repairs done this year. Last year we actually had central air and heat pumps installed to try and alleviate some pressure off the old oil burners, which I think is going to pay dividends this year at the price of oil if we don't have to use them as much. So that's all I really have for financial, unless you guys have questions for me.
Brian, last year I know you talked to our former township manager Denise about some extra money for air packs or some piece of equipment.
Air packs were actually 2 years ago. Last year it was, there's just a whole bunch of little things. We got the 3,000 feet of hose from
Yeah, the Maryland.
Maryland Fire Company that was getting rid of it and was still like new at a substantial savings. Our old engine rescue, 1987, had to have some major radiator repair and engine work, so that was, I think it came in at just over 7,000. Some road road closure signs and things like that for storms. I can't remember what else we had
I'm
on
trying to
that.
think what else was on that little list.
Yeah, I can't remember. And I looked at it last week even, but, so that was that. And then we've brainstormed and came up with some ideas for this year. For any financial assistance you can give us would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, we appreciate what you did for us last year towards our wish list. So every year we try to come up with this, where do we need to go, short term, then long term. So we provided you with, and I can talk about the first 6 items on here. Getting harder and harder to train. We get new members in, and quite frankly, we don't see fires anymore. And to hold an interest of a 20-year-old or 21-year-old going to vehicle accidents or trees down all the time. So, and it's getting harder to get old homes to burn with all the permits. So one of the things that the companies are doing are taking shipping containers, and they hold up really well. You can stack them, you can make 2 stories out of them. They hold the heat really well, and try to do some training with them. And so we're looking into possibly starting out with one, do some burns right there, they're quick, some evenings, and get some of these young guys and say, okay, here's what a fire really is. And hopefully hold some interest and maybe boost our membership with that. And help some of us that haven't seen fire in a few years. So that was the first item. And we're looking at used. The biggest thing with used shipping containers, you can find them cheap, but it's getting them from Jersey shipyard to Warriors Mark is where the cost is. So we're researching that, and that's why you'll see it's approximate $6,000. We haven't pinpointed that down. The next item on there, we assist somebody. Tyrone's had a number of fires, and we have been assisting them. And you grab their lines, or you grab someone else's line, and you go into a building. It's like, boy, this hose is really comfortable to work with. And my son ran with Harrisburg, and I went down there with him, and we did some burn training in that. And you can move a house or a hose through a house so easily, and one guy on there. So we started looking into it, and our nozzles are so dated. To get to the optimum, you want 150 gallon of water per minute on a fire. To do that with our nozzles, our old design, we're running 125 psi at the truck, which trucks are running harder. Well, to hold a line with 125 psi in there, I mean, you get wore out pretty quick. So you end up putting 2 guys and 3 guys on a nozzle. So anyway, we had Whitmer come in from the fire store, and they come out with they redesigned their nozzles, and it's a 75 psi nozzle. So to get 150 gallon a minute on the fire, which is optimal, you're running at 75 psi, which your trucks are running, and one guy can hold that line. So we had a bunch of guys there trying this out, and it's like, okay, take this line, and it's amazing. So we were looking to just outfit our engine rescue, then move those nozzles and replace other ones. And there's a new strainer. Right now we do a low-level strainer, we do a floating strainer. Well, they come out with this new one, lightweight, that kind of takes care of both things. So you're reducing your storage on your truck. So that is line item number 2. 3 and 4 kind of go together, and this just happened to us probably a month ago.
Yeah.
A lot of the vehicles, I mean, you're seeing them on here because I think the one farmer our way, large farmer, starting to farm out towards the Simpson old place. But anyway, they use the military trucks with the manure tanks on and the silage boxes. It's been about 1 a year, sometimes 2 a year, they roll them things over. Sometimes we don't know about it, they hurry up, hook a chain to it, roll them up, clean up the manure in the road. But we had one a month ago where an 18-year-old was pinned underneath it. It wasn't life-threatening, but we couldn't get him out. So the tank was still half full of manure. We had to rely on Alphas come over with their long struts, and their long struts have the ability to put a jack on. You can also lift with them. We checked into the price of them after they came, and we rolled the whole truck and was able to pull him out. So it's like, you know what, we're not really equipped to handle. And I mowed a lot over there along 45, and I counted 30 military trucks. Now, some of them are the same, going back and forth, hauling silage and manure. So it's like, we better look into this. And so we started pricing out some things. And the Rescue Jack is a cheaper version of what the Alphas have. The Alphas Paratech, they have Paratech ones, they'll lift 60 ton. Yeah, that'd be nice to have, but we're not lifting railroad cars or anything like that. So we looked into these Rescue Jacks, which is considerably a lot less, and they would suit our needs quite well. For even tractors, military trucks, and the lifting bag. What that lifting bag was, right now we have airbags that lift different tonnage compared to the bag. We tried lifting that truck before Alexandria, or before Alphas got there with Alexandria's bags. You stick 2 bags in there, well, we punctured one of the bags. But their lifting capability is only 5-6 inches, something like that. So this bag, they come out with this new bag, when collapsed it's 4 inches, but it can lift 31 tons at a height of 26 inches, which if we had that bag, we could have lifted that truck. If it was a light threatening, we would have got him out. Right now, I think it was like 45 minutes before we got him out. So between the line items 3 and 4, that kind of resulted from that call we had a month ago. And it was only a matter of time we had someone pinned under them. Luckily, they've been getting out and no one injured. Line item number 5, on that same call, one of our first Center County portables that I think you guys may have bought us.
That might have been on the list last year.
One of them crapped the bed down there, and they're obsolete, the 2 oldest ones we have. Now, the new ones we got, we've been trying to get parts for, and then they're like, hey, I know these things are obsolete. Yeah, we know, but we don't have a wide, I think we might have 6 or 7 Center County radios, something like portables. So we thought, well, we'll put that on there. That's the future on down the line. We want to replace that one.
Let me ask you a question about that. I know years ago that the state mandated, or the federal government, somebody mandated new frequencies for all the radios, and then some of the firemen were complaining they wouldn't penetrate the building. Where are we at with our radio security? Do you guys need more radios? Do they work down there?
Well, for Huntington we were a low band, and we were 3374 megahertz. And they talked about it for years, going to the UHF band, and fire companies push back, it's not going to work. Well, they said, look, it's going to work because the towers are coming down. We're putting a new system in. And so we bought new radios. You guys helped us. Whereas Mark helped us, we got new radios, and they're working great. We don't need the 100-watt mobiles in our vehicles anymore. You can carry a portable. They're working inside the buildings just fine. And the Center County ones are working just fine. So it's changed. Old timer, it's like, I don't want to change. These things work great. You bounce the signal off the hay rake out in the field, come over here to the 3374, works great. Well, they're finding out that the new radios are working quite well. So, yeah, we're having no issues with them. It's just, like I said, the first ones we had bought in Center County are now obsolete. And the Center County ones, we don't use them as much as the Huntington. So, therefore, Kenwood's usually a cheaper route for us to go, and that's the way we have been going for the Ken. Motorola's are sometimes almost
Spendy.
double the cost, yeah. And now we went with Motorola and Huntington. That's what we rely on. That's our dispatch and all that. But for Center County, we do. Now that call over there, I pulled that radio out, and that's the one that died. I pulled mine out of my truck. The battery's dead. Great. So I went over and got the one out of the special unit, and it died. I'm like, great. So I tried to call Alphas on the way. Like I said, we had this guy pinned there. They have one Huntington County radio. And I asked about that over that call. Yeah, we always forget to grab that when we come to mutual aid. So our only way to talk to them is through the Center County. But it was a little bit hectic until they got on scene. So that's 5. Number 6, our brush truck. We got a really good deal through Pierce. What it was a track truck at the Daytona Speedway. They built this thing up, and they ran it at Daytona for a year. And our representative in Pierce guy said, hey, you want this guy, this really brush truck, really good, blah, blah, blah. And we got a real good price on it. The only thing is, The tires on that stinking thing are for a racetrack. And as soon as you take it off road, when Port had that fire, the brush fire up at Loner's Junkyard, we got it, went back the lane and got it off of the stone and swamped it. And we swamp this thing every time. And it's a little tough to find 19 and a half inch mud tires, but we're looking. But that was on our wish list to replace all the tires on. And wait, Brian put 4 on there, but it is a dual, but that's going to be 6 tires we're going to replace on it. So that was on the wish list also. And that's the 1 through 6. If you have any questions on that, Brian could talk about the building.
Yeah, it's 31 years old. Things are starting to wear out. We resealed the roof, put new screws in the metal roof, and sealed all the seams. Last year we updated the HVAC system last year. The next step are we put all new ceiling tiles in it. What else have we done?
You painted it throughout.
Oh yeah, we repainted the whole building throughout.
The bathrooms are really dated. If we have one of our cash parties in there and the bathrooms start getting used a lot, you start getting a septic smell back up through, and a lot of that's because it hasn't been used. So that all needs to be updated. The drains flushed and cleaned, and that's all part of the update
Yeah,
to the
that
bathroom.
and the bathroom stalls. If you have somebody in there in a wheelchair, they're not getting in the stall with the wheelchair.
And that's bad. I mean, not that we're not handicap compliant.
Yeah, so
You're looking at a full redo on that as
Yep.
well. And I know your meeting room is used a lot.
yeah,
Well, in back and out front, so.
Yep. So that's some short term now. I will mention to you, just in case you would hear it through the grapevine, long term. So our old piece, the engine.
The 87.
Yeah, we put money into it. So it's like, where do we go from here? We look down the road. And one of the reasons why we're starting to talk about it now, that Pierce is telling us if you ordered a piece right now, it's 2 years to get a chassis. So that's not even the planning. So if, the way some of the planning takes you, or a year of planning of what you want. So we're probably looking a minimum of 3 years, probably more like 4 years. If we sat down right now and said, we want a new piece in there. So we start talking around, where do we want to go from here? So it's like, the tanker's good shape, the engine rescue's good shape, the brush, once we get some good tires on it. So let's look at replacing this old one, and maybe let's go towards like an attack. And you'll probably see them if you would do searches like a wildland vehicle out west. They're a 4-door chassis, international chassis, something like that, 4-wheel drive. We do have places in Wearsmart that keep our fingers crossed. There's some homes up, Bear Ridge is one of the areas that if something burns up there, we're not going to get anything up to it, and the way these people built. So we thought, let's look at an attack engine. Some people call it wildland. We'll call it attack. It can be double as a brush unit, 4-wheel drive. We're not going to take it through the woods and beat it, blah, blah, blah. But we can get into some of these smaller, tighter places, and with the 4-wheel drive. So that's where we're at. Just initial talk. I just wanted to bring that up. It's like, oh, where's Mark's? Because the word's out there. So people's already approached me. They're like, are you thinking about a new piece? I'm like, oh, well, even if we wanted to, right now we're probably 4 years even to think about backing a piece in there. So, but you have to start thinking where you want to head and start looking. So that is our long-term goal for big apparatus replacement.
Any questions?
Come to the gun raffle. We
How
bought
much
tickets.
do you expect to make profit on your gun raffle this weekend?
This is our third one, and the last 2 years we've raised between, I think one year was 24,000, the other one was 26,000 is what our net profit was.
That tickets and meals and everything else when you have the drawing, or
What was that?
is that tickets and then, I know you sell food or
Oh
something
yeah.
for drawing.
Well, no, the food's all provided with your
Oh, that's
ticket.
all
Food
provided.
and alcohol's right.
And then, yeah, rip ticket games, we raffle off guns, various different ways. Cash prizes, 50/50s. We're doing a lottery raffle.
Brian and his family has totally revamped our money making. I mean, over the years, the carnival, the 4 days, going down to making $5,000, and it was killing. They come in with these new ideas, and it has been amazing, the response, and the community is excited too. Something different. I was working out for him. I applaud him for everything he's done. So.
Yeah, you can't buy new trucks on chicken barbecues,
No.
unfortunately. As much as people like them, they don't pay the bills, so,
Not the big money.
no.
Yeah, and it's going to get to the point where I don't even, like I said, the pricing of things. While normal vehicles are right now, the pricing is ridiculous. So I know the Hookies are looking at a new ladder truck that's over $2 million. I don't know how small companies are going to. Like you said,
And there's probably not gonna be much used equipment available out there, is there?
And,
'Cause
yeah,
there's a shortage of new trucks.
even that's going up, and I've looked. Okay, it's like what's out there for wildland attack pieces, and you might see one, and it's like, boy, that price is high, but it's gone, and you don't know what you're getting. What I mean, I know some neighboring companies have bought used, and Bald Eagle's had numerous troubles with their used equipment. Not saying new is always the best way to go. I mean, that's where we like to start out and plan for it far enough ahead. But so that's the long-term wish list. Like I say, I appreciate and I thank you for everything you've done in support for us.
Well, we're glad that you came down here tonight. I know it's an imposition in your daily life, but, it's kinda nice to hear from the fire company and see how you're doing. You're way out there in the end. Of course, that's where I live, but, a lot of the township, is there anything we could do? If you guys send out fundraiser letters to make sure you got addresses, so people in Halfmoon Township know you service as well. I think our problem is a lot of people think we're services is provided by Alpha, and I know they do come out here and help, but, Warriors Mark and Port Matilda are our two main fire companies.
Yeah, I mean, we do send out a mailer to the Warriors Mark address in Half Moon, which is pretty much our coverage area for Half Moon. So they all do get our mailer, and asking for donations and what's going on with the company and all that.
How was the response to that?
It's usually pretty decent, I would say. I mean,
And we're still, the way the mailers, a long time ago, you could pick, Warriors Mark RD1, but now what you have to do in the mailing system is you pick an address and then you do a radius. You do a 5-mile or 10-mile radius of the fire company. And it grabs the postal codes. And then it wants to send it, so you have to send it to those. It's like, okay, 16686 was grabbed in there, which is Tyrone. Do you want to include that? So I'm always calling Port Bald Eagle and Tyrone's like, hey, some of our mailers, just because the way this postal thing works, is going to go to your fire coverage area. We're not trying to take money away from you, but it's really hard to select where you want mailers to go anymore. So I'm not sure how far out we go out this way.
just the Warriors Mark
Just
zip code, so.
I think you guys do all the way up Loveville Road to the Marengo Road intersection, don't you?
yes, and
Yeah,
that's
I
probably
mean,
Warriors
every-
Mark.
Yeah, that's
mailing.
Warriors Mark zip code, so they get all that. They all get that. I think we usually have a pretty good response. I mean, it went out in April, and we've gotten somewhere right around 80 donations back that I'm going to assume are because of that, and not just people that just give every year.
What do you think your average donation is?
I would probably say somewhere between 150 and 200.
The people donate are digging into their wallet a little bit.
Yes. Yeah, we have great community support. I mean, they not only come to our events, but I mean, there's some that donate a lot of money every year. I mean, there's people that leave us money in their wills. I mean, at least every year we get some sort of an estate donation. So yeah, people think about us, so and like to have us there.
Okay.
Anybody got any other questions? Thanks
If you
again.
think of
thank you.
anything, have Brett email me and I'll gladly answer them for you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I ask a question to the board?
Oh. Who's asking?
Joe Syndicate's on.
Oh, on the, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, has Halfmoon Township adopted Warriors Mark Fire Department, or are we still investigating?
Warriors Mark's been our fire department and part of the township as the main call people for a long time. I don't know how far. The Davison Road area in Marengo, or along Loveville Road up to Marengo.
I was under the impression that Port Matilda was our responding fire department.
They are for the eastern portion of the township.
They don't.
No, they are for the eastern portion of the township. Warriors Mark is the western portion of the township.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right, well, thanks. Any other questions out in the audience? Okay, Half Moon Acres wastewater treatment facility presentation.
All right, we do have a presentation this evening, and in case you're interested, I have a handout as well.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do appreciate supervisors adding us to the agenda this evening to provide a presentation on the proposed, the old term has been
Can you
wastewater.
do state your names for the record and who you represent? I know who you represent, but others may not.
I'm Ben Burns with HRG Engineering, and we represent Half Moon Acres.
Mark Maloney, I'm the president of Halfmoon Acres LLC.
Yeah, so the historical term has been wastewater treatment plant, and that's a term that's been used kind of across the country. Recently, one of the major consortiums in wastewater treatment has moved towards a term of water and resource recovery facility, because that's really what we're doing in a lot of these instances, is that we are trying to generate a renewable or beneficial reuse product from the water that's generated from residential homes and commercial establishments. So periodically you'll hear us refer to water and resource recovery facility, and that's as an indication of the water recycling aspect that we're going to be using. A little bit about the history of how we got to this point, and we're not going to go through every step, but we kind of highlight the major aspects associated with the treatment of wastewater from the proposed development. And in 2010, there was some discussions regarding the wastewater treatment facility, and at that point, the township did send a letter to DEP in support of a wastewater treatment facility. Now, at that time, it was proposed to be inside an old barn, but that has changed a little bit due to some of the modern code requirements associated with doing something like that.
You know, let me jump in. We're going to tag team a little bit here. Actually, I'm going to rewind to 2008. I was in front of this board, well, not this board, but the board in 08, and we got a lot of support with the idea that we would increase the capacity to allow for potential failures. I think, is it Sawmill Road back in 2006 when the 537 plan was being reviewed, that there were a fairly high failure rate of the septic systems there. And so the DEP was considering mandating some sort of community wastewater facility at that time as a solution if there couldn't be a simpler solution, if you will, like the pumping plan. You guys are on, what, a 3-year pump out, mandatory pump out plan? So that seems to be doing pretty well. I don't know, I haven't, asked any of you how that's working out, but back then, that motivated the conversation that we had in 2008 with the board, and the board supported my increasing the plant capacity by about 20%, over and above what my needs were on my land. So in 2010, where Ben commented on, we actually were proposing to put the water recycling facility inside the barn, which is right along 550 on the west side of my property. That barn, so you guys have an ordinance that supports and motivates the repurposing of old ag structures. So we thought we would be clever and see, well, why not disguise this plant? Not that we need to disguise it, but we did, and we tried to figure out how could we engineer it and make it fit into that barn. Fast forward to now, when you look at the cost of everything, building a brand new facility and putting a brand new building around it is a lot cheaper actually than, I don't know why I was getting creative, but I guess I was trying to disguise the plant in the barn. So there's a lot of ways to make this look like it'll blend in with the community without trying to put it inside of a barn. So we abandoned that idea, but the point that Ben was making, the township, the board actually wrote a letter on my behalf supporting that concept and asked numerous questions of the DEP about the technical feasibility of trying to do that. I don't recall the response at that point, but that's where we were. 2011, we submitted our first component 3 module. I know it was submitted in draft. I think, Dave, maybe you reviewed it and sent it on to DEP in draft because we wanted to get some feedback. And then about 6 or 7 years went by. The housing market was pretty much, in a pretty slow state at that point. I don't think there was a lot of development going on. So here we are, 2018, we resubmitted the component 3. And then we had some slowdown in the process, and then COVID hit in 2020. And so we're here today. So I'll turn it back over to you.
Okay, and for reference, whenever we consider beneficial reuse of wastewater and look at treatment requirements for developing wastewater facilities to meet certain guidelines or certain standards, there's primarily 2 references that we use. And those are both documents from Environmental Protection Agency and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. They're reuse guidance manuals that establish the guidelines, criteria, treatment requirements. It establishes how the water can be used, what level of treatment must be done to the water in order to be eligible for a particular use. Both of those documents have been around since 2012. Some of the documents are updates or revisions to previous documents. The EPA document, for instance, first came out in 2004, and they did this latest revision in 2012. But those are the guidance documents that we utilize in order to establish the basis of design and criteria moving forward. So I know there was some concern voiced at the Planning Commission level about making sure that all of this is in compliance with DEP regulations, and certainly we use these DEP guidance documents and requirements to guide the process. So there are some pretty profound benefits to water reuse. And they're identified here in the sense that realistically it reduces the amount of water that needs to be withdrawn from surface water sources or groundwater sources. So if we're taking water that's already been withdrawn for the purposes of human use, and that water then is dirtied through the activities of utilizing it, by taking that water and reusing it, it prevents more water from being withdrawn from the ground. So it is a really good water conservation measure. The other thing is it does help to replenish groundwater and surface water sources. So in the sense of reusing water for irrigation purposes, or reusing water to augment streams or ponds, it allows that water to enter the natural cycle again, as opposed to just discharging it into some stream and having it move away. It does help reduce pollutant loading to surface waters. So there are oftentimes nutrients available in the water that if you're applying them to a field for irrigation purposes, there are some low levels of nitrogen and phosphorus that could be taken up by the plants to grow. Otherwise, that material would be discharged into the surface water. There are some cost-saving aspects as well, and they also provide some aesthetic value. So in many instances, beneficial reuse water or reclaimed water is used to generate features for appearance, water fountains, ponds, stream augmentation, that sort of thing. Beyond that, if it's used for irrigation purposes, help greening of lawns and that sort of thing. And the other thing is we can also allow for non-discharge alternatives. So rather than discharging the wastewater to the ground or the stream, there are other opportunities where we can use it for irrigation. Some instances it can be used for swimming pools or toilet flushing or other features rather than just discharging it as a disposed of commodity. So there's really one major definition that DEP utilizes for the type of water reuse that is proposed for this facility, and that's reclaimed water. And they have a very specific definition, and it's treated wastewater used in accordance with applicable guidelines for beneficial purpose as a substitute for water withdrawn from surface or groundwater sources. And they've established 4 classes of reclaimed water. And those classes are based on level of treatment. And then each level of treatment has associated reuse opportunities corresponding to it. So there's Class A+, that's the highest quality water with the highest level of treatment. And then that goes all the way down to Class C. For this project, we're proposing to generate a Class A reuse water. And the Class A reuse water, incidentally, is the same classification of water that's generated by the University Area Joint Authority in their beneficial reuse program. There's some photographs there on that slide as well that generally identifies just visually the cleanliness of the water as you move from left to right. We have raw wastewater that kind of has a brownish gray appearance to it. The middle beaker would represent something similar to a tertiary level of treatment, and then all the way to the right is a beneficial reuse water, typically through some type of membrane filtration process, which is what's proposed here. So just visually you can see the difference there. So this is a table extracted directly from the DEP wastewater reuse manual, and they specifically define the minimum level of treatment as including secondary treatment, nitrification, denitrification, filtration, and then ultimately disinfection. And they have some treatment standards that have been identified there, and these are the standards that all design work will be completed to in order to make sure that we meet these very stringent standards. Typical wastewater treatment plant discharge to the ground might have a BOD of 10 or 20 milligrams per liter, and you can see here that we're striving for less than 2 milligrams per liter. The other thing that's interesting to note is that on a quarterly basis, there will be a requirement to monitor the primary and secondary drinking water contaminants. So on the drinking water side of things, there's a list of contaminants that must be monitored for, and through the beneficial reuse guidance, we'll have to monitor for those as well, just for comparison in that aspect. This is difficult to read. That was partially by design, in the sense that we wanted to highlight the number of opportunities just for Class A and Class B beneficial reuse water. And this includes everything from public swimming pools, private swimming pools, residential car washing, commercial toilet flushing, irrigation of golf courses, irrigation of playfields and crops, snowmaking, street cleaning, all kinds of opportunities for water reuse that are at or below the level of treatment that's proposed for this specific facility. So one of the interesting things is that for Class B or better, so that's Class B, A, or A+, there is unrestricted public access to the systems that utilize this beneficial reuse water. So the DEP reuse manual does identify some specific operating protocols. So there'll be some permits that are necessary to obtain in order to operate a system. They'll have their own specific special conditions associated with it. We don't know at this point, but once the permits are issued, we'll understand those. But there are some operating protocols that have already been set in place and standardized. And that is that DEP requires a detailed set of instructions for what to do to operate the facilities, and it describes what the operators should do in certain systems in order to meet the specific standards established for beneficial reuse.
I'm going to just offer up, once we introduce our guest here, he can touch on this operations, since I have Roy Rupert here. He's the, when he comes up and jumps on, once we get to his part of the presentation, he can touch on this in a far more detailed sense. He's the certified operator of the Milheim MBR plant. So that's, very close by. It's the nearest facility that is almost identical to what we're proposing for our facility here in Halfmoon Township. So when it's his turn, I'll bring him up, but he can circle back on these operator concerns.
Part of the detailed instructions also will include a contingency plan for what to do if the water somehow is off specification. Requires a reclaimed water user agreement, so if the water is going to be reused by any particular entity, there has to be an agreement in place between the generator and the user that stipulates how that water is going to be used. And then there's an annual report that must be submitted that documents the amount of water that was reused and the quality of the water that was generated. So
All right, now can we click that video? Is this the?
it'll be next.
Oh, gotcha.
So this slide just generally identifies very generically wastewater treatment facilities. So the facility on the top that shows the process flow diagram is more of a conventional wastewater treatment plant with the added step of sand filtration. But what a membrane bioreactor does is it replaces the last three steps, or the last two steps, I should say, of the conventional process. So rather than having clarification and filtration in separate steps, the membrane bioreactor combines those in a sense that a membrane module is located inside the bioreactor, and the membrane is a strict opportunity to separate the wastewater from clean water. So it's a barrier, it's a physical barrier with a specific pore size that rejects material from passing through, and that's what generates the high quality clean water. So there's a little diagram down there in the corner that shows these very unrealistic smiley face particles. that cannot pass through the holes in the membrane. And the larger particles are simply rejected, the water and some smaller particles, the clean water, are then allowed to pass through. So this really is a physical barrier to generate the clean water. You know, we're not relying on some type of physical chemical process here or a biological process. We're utilizing the biological process to break down the wastewater to a certain level, and then we're generating the clean water using this physical barrier. And on the next slide then, we do have a video. This video was not generated by us, but it's kind of a diagram that talks through in a much more elegant way than I can how a membrane bioreactor does operate.
Does that go full screen?
Yeah, I think, Amy, if you clicked on the full screen link down in the bottom, it could make that a little bit larger there. Yep, right. One over, right there. Oh, maybe not.
It's stuck.
What's that? There is sound, but it disappeared from
It's
the.
not up there on the screen at all.
We just have the Half Moon logo.
Logo. Silent movie.
Is there sound on your computer by chance?
Right, but if I turn it on, is it coming through?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess we can try. Wait, how do you try?
Should I unmute this or turn up my sound?
I think turn up your sound. But it probably sounds.
This is about it, right? That's why
Yeah.
I bring my projector.
Yeah.
Well, I think maybe if you go back and start, I can kind of be the narrator as best that I can.
This is full screen.
So a lot of these MBRs anymore are developed in packages, particularly for package treatment plants. And this is demonstrating the conventional activated sludge process where you have an aeration tank where microorganisms are doing the work to break down the waste material, and then that passes on to a traditional clarifier. In the MBR, one of the MBR's membrane modules is placed into a tank, and that MBR takes the place of the conventional clarifier. So you have influent that comes into the reactor. The reactor is both biological as well as this physical separation with the membrane module, and then the clean effluent is generated as well as wastewater is generated off the bottom. This is just a general diagram of what one of these package treatment plants can look like. Usually there's mechanical screening associated with the beginning, so we remove any rags or debris that shouldn't be in the wastewater. There's air blowers on board. There's recirculation pumps on board. There's chemical dosing pumps, all associated with the module. And then there's a cleaning tank that helps to keep the membrane clean as it's filtering. So the tanks are usually set up into multiple different stages, and those stages represent both anoxic conditions as well as aerobic conditions. And under those specific conditions, we favor specific microorganisms that do different parts of the wastewater treatment. That helps us to obtain the BOD reduction goals, as well as the nitrification, denitrification goals that are established by those DEP criteria. In the center, the aerobic tank, this is where oxygen would be added. And the oxygen is added to enable the microorganisms to respire so that they have the ability to consume the wastewater that's been discharged. And then as that moves into the MBR tank, that's where the modules are located and the actual filtration does occur. The modules are typically aerated. That helps the material from binding and fouling the exterior surface of the membrane. And it also helps to allow the biological process to continue within this particular section. So you can see that the particles are generally being rejected and clean water is passing through into the middle of the supporting panel through the membrane sheets. And then they're designating there that you do have this uplift of air scouring to help keep the particles from fouling the surface of the membrane. So MBRs are typically have a dramatically smaller footprint compared to wastewater conventional plants. They can typically treat very much higher strength influent wastewaters. Water quality is substantially higher. And then obviously there's the potential for water reuse, which is what is proposed here. So typically the standard installation of MBR is to install the module inside the reactor. But you can also place the membranes outside of the reactor. That increases the footprint, but you still end up with the same quality of water. You just don't have the modules inside the reactor. So this slide really just reiterates the advantages that we talked about. State-of-the-art technology. You can operate the system at a much higher MLSS, and that stands for the mixed liquor suspended solids. Really what that is, it's the concentration of the material in the reactor. And the higher the material in the reactor, the more treatment that you can generally obtain. And we'll go on to the next slide. This slide depicts the membrane module classification. So there's different classes of membranes. You can go from conventional filtration to microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nano, and then reverse osmosis. This is all based on pore size. So the smaller the pore size, the smaller the compound that you can reject. So in this case, we're targeting a 0.038 micrometer average pore size, and that fits within that ultrafiltration range, which is in the range of excluding bacteria, colloids, and viruses. This is the construction of a package treatment facility just for general scale purposes. So you can see that those gentlemen standing there and their relationship to these these are buried tanks in this instance, so the above-ground aesthetics is very good. There's a minimal amount of material above ground.
What we're comparing and what we'll see in some later slides. So this is a full in-ground setup, whereas the containerized package plant that you saw in the video would sit completely above ground. We're going to compare the Milheim plant, which is an above ground, kind of a hybrid between there's a container for the control systems, and then there's a concrete construction tank that is primarily above ground.
Right.
What we're shooting for is something that's completely in the ground, and then we put a building over it that's going to look very residential almost. You'll see the last slide, I believe, is what we're going after in terms of the aesthetics, the look. But this is only 25,000 gallons per day, just for scale. It's very small. The size of the plant we're looking at is 67,000 gallons per day. Is that's the permit amount that we're asking for of DEP. So something maybe on the order of 2.5 times that scale, which isn't very much bigger than, those are pretty small tanks. So to give you a sense of scale of what we're looking at.
This is an example drawing of a,
Jens maybe involved. I don't know if he's, so we have another gentleman that was gonna.
He's told me he got too late, he's off.
Oh, he's off. All right. We actually had the.
You can, I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Oh, you're back. Hi, Jens. Okay, I'm gonna introduce you
No,
while.
I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah, that's okay.
Jens Sonntag, I'm with A3. We
So-
put the MBR system in Milheim. Thanks, Mark, but I'm only on my phone here, but I can see the slides well.
Okay, yeah,
I'm not sure.
I met, I think the Board of Supervisors, back in 2009, when we did the sort of field trip tour of the facility in Milheim. I think you were there, Jens, right? I'm pretty sure you were. Anyway, so Jens is from Germany. He came over here 25 years ago, and is now the head of the MBR manufacturing facility for A3 Technology, which is a German company, but he does all the manufacturing here in the States now for that company. So he's the gentleman that worked with Roy when they designed and built the Milheim facility. So that's why Jens is involved. Anyway, Jens, this blueprint you have is the facility you built down in Chester County.
Chester, yes.
Yeah, outside of Philadelphia, right?
That's Chester, Pennsylvania. It was a 50,000 gallon per day system. Was a development, single family house.
yeah, so this shows three aspects on the top. I guess we'll start with the bottom of the slide. This is the wastewater treatment system realistically.
Located inside a building. We'll see that, I think later on the slides, you will have some pictures coming up. They also had it's like a water system in there, a post storage tanks and stuff. We don't need those here. But yeah, that was a 50,000 gallon per day MBR in Chester, Pennsylvania.
All right,
Small footprint, as you can see. Building was around 60 feet long, and the building itself, I think it's 60 by less than 20 feet. Okay, just the building itself. And then the treatment plant's on the other side. If you go to the next slide, you can see so that's the depth of the tank. Smaller systems, even the system we're talking about, 67,000 gallons, or close to 70,000 gallons a day. Only 12-foot deep tanks, that's it, 12.5 foot deep tanks. Needed water level with 10.5 feet, and here you see on the left side the EQ, and the sludge, and then the treatment tank, anoxic, aerobic, and the aerobic on the right-hand side, and the membrane. These guys actually send me monthly reports still. I'm on their list. I just got a report today, and even though it was needed, there was also class reuse A, as Ben mentioned before, total nitrogen less than 10 required, but these guys are meeting right today. For example, was a BOD of non-detect, less than 2, that's all they can measure, so they say non-detect. TSS, same thing, non-detect, because they only can measure up to 5. Total nitrogen was 3.2. even though they only have one anoxic tank, they had a total nitrogen of 3.2. So stellar results for system, and that has been there for 7-8 years, I think, around.
So these results are better than the requirements. They're beating the requirements of DEP
Yes.
for Class A reused water.
Yeah.
All right, next slide. Okay, that's
And, that's the
that's
building.
that's the building. Yeah,
Mhm.
very small.
So, and they wanted, and it's the same as for Mark, they wanted appealing because the development is 100 yards away, maybe, right? It's close by, brand new homes, brand new townhomes that did want not the typical wastewater treatment appeal. They wanted a nice building. So you barely see actually that's a wastewater treatment plant. The tank's on the back, and you see that's in the middle picture on the bottom. And then the skids, this is all skid mounted, and we will build those in North Carolina, as well as the membranes. Typical dual stack. These are the actual membrane modules. Ben talked prior about it. This rigid plates, as Ben mentioned, 0.038 micrometers. The distance in between the plates is a 1/4 inch, so you don't have any blocking issues. Aeration on the bottom to constantly scour those. It's a barrier. It's been the main difference on a membrane system is it's a complete barrier. Everything leaving the system has to go through a 0.038 or 0.04, around a 0.04 micrometer membrane. So it's so fine, you will never have a TSS carryover like it could happen in a rain event in a conventional system, right? And that's why if reuse is required, if you have irrigations with fine nozzles and stuff, MBR is actually the way to go. This is a larger system, a barn style. We chose a slide, due to the nice aesthetics of the barn. This is still a 550,000 gallon per day system, much larger than required. But again, they put the whole system, including even sludge. This is a big system, so they got sludge dewatering, pre-screening, fine screening, EQ tank, a post-aeration tank, UV system, labs. Everything is confined to this barn. And this was actually our first MBR system in the United States. A3 started in Germany. You can probably tell by the accents. A3 started in 2000 in Germany, but that was our first MBR system in Milheim.
Hey Jens, I'm gonna
15 years old.
I'm gonna have Roy come up and take my place so he can. You guys can talk together.
Roy
about this.
Roy can talk about the system way better than I can. I installed it way back, but Roy operated it, so. And hey, Roy.
Hi, Jens.
And so I think, Roy, do you want to take over? I mean, that's you operated that plant for 15 plus years, so 15 years now, right? In August.
Yes, it is. Yeah, I'm Roy Rupert. I've worked in Penns Valley for 30 years operating water and wastewater facilities, and I've been in 14, almost 15 years with the MBR system. And like Jens said, it was the first one that he built in the United States. Ben and Mark covered most of the things here about the plant. One thing they didn't talk about was I have login ability. I can log into on my phone or my iPad or anything and control everything that needs to be done, and which helps as far as your time spent at the plant, things like that. And also the alarm system. There's alarms pretty much for anything that can go wrong, and everything is in redundancy. So if something fails, you can switch over to the other components, whatever you need to keep processing the water. And something that's changed since when we built this plant in 2008, we were using a programmer out of Pittsburgh. And of course, where we're located in Penns Valley was 3 hours each way anytime we had an issue. So now, since that time, Jens is using a different company who's local in State College, and he's not only is he available when we need him for any kind of an issue, he also can keep upgrading what the plant can do as far as things I'm concerned about. If there's something that's, I'd like an alarm put in or I'd like something changed, he can do that for me. And generally remotely, he can, without even coming to the plant. So it gives us all kinds of flexibility as far as mainly your comfort level as an operator to make sure you're happy with everything. But as far as the quality of we discharge to an exceptional value stream, Elk Creek, and my test results for the last 14, 15 years are pretty much non-detect. It's never an issue. So as far as that goes, it's also, as far as my daily requirements, you have to weigh sludge, which is the thicker sludge that we accumulate. We pump it to the very end tanks you can see there. But as far as what time I spend there, you literally can go through the plant and do what you have to in 10 minutes. Now, I'm not saying every day is like that, but you can take care of everything. You can, like I say, monitor it constantly. So there, as far as an operator-friendly plant, it's great. I operate different types of plants also, but the MBR puts out a better quality water than any of them. And as far as, I don't really, on a day-to-day basis, you don't even see the water. You don't have to see the water. You don't have to really get involved with it as far as physically. Where the other plants, it's a little different. So, but this plant, we've had great luck with the membranes, the durability of them. They've held up really well. So and we toured several different plants before we built this one, and I always took the operator aside and asked them what was the biggest hassle, and they never really had anything to tell me that was difficult, and it proved true over the years. So
How many gallons a day are you processing in Millheim?
Our plant is rated for 100,000 gallons a day. Right now, we're putting about 52,000 gallons out. It goes up and down depending on how the usage. When the Grange Fair is in act, we don't have as much water, of course. Everybody's at the fair. But, I mean, one of the biggest things, though, is, like I say, is the alarms. Anything that goes wrong, it's gonna let you know. If there's power interruptions, if a blower fails, anything like that. If your effluent isn't meeting the standards you want, it's gonna let you know that also, so you can get there and, take care of things. So, but it is like you can see in the picture, it's a pretty small footprint.
When did you add the solar?
Solar was added about 2.5 years ago, and it powers the whole treatment plant, the water filtration system at the other end of town in the Borough Building, and we make money each month off of it also. So I think I'm pretty sure they did it might be a 28-year plan with it as far as the financing, but it's working really well.
That plant's right off of the Tattletown Road?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yep. We had an old trickling filter before that didn't perform well from day one, and then we got involved with Jens in probably 2007 until the plant was built, and it's made a world of difference, especially with an EV stream. And I know most of the people around there, so you want to be happy with what you're putting into the stream.
Where's the sludge disposed?
What happens is any treatment plant that performs well, you're going to pull more of the sludge out of the water because you're not letting anything go out. So we pump that to the end tanks there. Every day you waste, Mark or Ben mentioned the mixed liquor, that's the thickness of the water. We have a meter that reads that for us, and we run probably about 3 times higher than my other typical plants. So when the sludge is pumped to that end tank there, then we have a trucker comes in and hauls it to Bellefonte. Yeah, they take it out for us.
Probably.
They haul probably once a week out of there. So, sludge is a big cost of any treatment plant. Ben knows that. So, but they pretty much covered everything. As far as an operator, like I said, the local support with their programmers has gave me more comfort than anything, knowing he's around. Can help you out when you need to.
I think that the big contrast we want to make, though, as we close out here, is if you sank those tanks down into the ground, and that little white tiny building on the top back end of that tank structure is the screen building where the course screen is, and then the container on the left is the controls and the pumps. You sink all that into the ground, and the control systems will go into that building. Go to the very last slide. You go to a far more aesthetic appearance.
You back up once, or can you back up the slide again? The shipping container you see between the buildings, the blue one there, Jens had all the controls built down in Pittsburgh. And so what we were able to do, we were able to avoid prevailing wage. And so he brought that in. We basically landed it there and just everything was connected and it was ready to go. The building on the left is the cleaning room. Your membranes, even though they have the air scouring between them, they do eventually get dirty. When they reach a certain negative pressure, we have a cleaning system. We flood the membranes with a strong chlorine solution and let them soak for a while, and it cleans all the pores out and everything. we start over again. If you keep everything healthy, your bacteria, you can go about 6 months between cleanings. You don't have to worry about it.
Does that process allow for denitrification?
It does. We don't have any total, I mean, it does denitrification throughout the plant. We don't have very strict limits, surprising for our EV stream. And we've been meeting all those, so we don't, we monitor it, but not that strong.
You always under 9?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I saw there were less, they shoot for, I think the last one was 2, and I think the limits are actually, are they 10?
10.
10. Yeah, we're always under there.
What about lifespan and memory?
Lifespan, I think, if I remember what Jens had told me, it was 8 to 10 years. Right now, we're on 14, and we are in the process of starting to replace some of them. If you do have a membrane that goes bad, you can literally just shut off a valve to it and run on the others and then replace that unit. Because you saw they're stackable, you can pull them right out and put a new one in.
Now, the plant you're operating is what, about the same capacity as what you're proposing, Mark, or is that?
They can handle 100,000, we're proposing 67,000, so about 2/3. Ours is significantly smaller than what Millheim is operating now.
Well, they're discharging into the stream,
Right.
and
point
you're
discharge.
using spray, correct, or
We're gonna drip irrigate,
you get a drip?
yeah,
Drip
on the
system.
farm, yeah.
I mean, the water, you can't, as far as the quality going out, you can't tell the difference. If you set 2 beakers of drinking water and our wastewater, it's pretty close.
Well, I know you can't see the bacteria, but on the drip system, you're not gonna spray up on the mountain anymore, so
No,
that's out.
that's
This is
out.
a different proposal then.
Much simpler, yeah. We're gonna reuse all of it on the farmland. It's, instead of pumping it, after all of the different engineers that have advised me over the years, and then sitting down with HRG, we really back in 2018, when we put that module together, we really simplified it quite a bit, so.
You guys have anything else to add?
Is the sludge, everything's contained, so there's, like, in your system, it'll be underground, so there's no
The
odor?
sludge gets hauled away, just like they're doing it.
Right, but I mean
Millheim.
temporarily,
Yeah,
how's the
I'm glad you
odor at
said that.
Millheim?
There's very little odor. I mean, very, surprisingly.
Because I know the Joint Authority had issues
Yeah, they did.
with that.
Yeah, they did. No, the odor's right on the other side of the solar field. There's an Amish family that lives there, and they've never said anything. We've never had any issues with odor. And I don't want to say I smell it all the time, but you occasionally do, and it does a really good job.
I was there, 2 days ago, taking those drone shots, and I didn't hardly smell anything
No,
unless
you
I
don't.
walked right up to that sludge tank. So,
Is that because of the difference in the processing between UAJA and what you've got, or
Yeah, it's
is
different
yours
than,
contained or
it's
something?
different than UAJ, of course, but I think it's just really healthy. I run another SBR plant up the road, and it's the same thing. It's very little odor, but I do notice odor there more than, I notice it there. I don't notice it here. I've never come, at this plant, I've never walked in and could tell. I know there's that, as far as having a wastewater plant put in your area, you think, oh, I don't want a sewer plant around me, but you don't notice this one at all. Plus, our prevailing winds blow towards the Amish farm too, and there's never been a complaint.
what's the final tertiary treatment, Ben? Chlorine or UV?
UV.
UV.
There may be a need for chlorine just to add a little bit of residual to the water, but primary disinfection will be using UV, and then we might add a small amount of hypochlorite as it gets distributed, just as keep a little residual in the water as it goes out.
What's the difference in the effluent quality between reverse osmosis and the biomembrane reactor?
Reverse osmosis is another step smaller in terms of pore size, so the quality tends to be just a little bit better. Really, what we're talking about is at that stage where we've already removed the majority of the microorganisms, majority of the viruses. Once you get down to the reverse osmosis level, you're talking about starting to remove some of the total dissolved solids. So you're removing the cations and anions in the water.
Minerals.
Minerals, exactly, yeah. So that's really the next step.
All right, well, I knew there was a difference there, but I wasn't sure what passed through one versus the other.
Yeah, the other thing is there, much smaller pore size, much higher potential for fouling, because you have to use an extremely high pressure to push through, so higher energy usage, higher pressures. And when you start to deal with concentration of those total dissolved solids and other chemicals on the surface of the RO membranes, you can start to develop fouling pretty readily. So there's more operational issues associated with reverse osmosis as well, compared to this level that still achieves the removal of the bacteria that we're trying to achieve.
Anybody have any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much for coming in.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jens.
Thanks.
Next up on the agenda is the Open Space Preservation Program 5-year review report. Who do we have given
I'm
that?
gonna bring the report, can you bring it up?
Sorry, Ron.
Okay, let's see, it's been a while since we went over this. Did the board get a copy of the report?
It was linked.
It was linked, okay. Has everybody seen the report?
I read it.
I mean, there's some recommendations, I guess, without going through the whole report, is there anything that, are there any of the recommendations that are an issue for anyone? I didn't think there would be.
I didn't have any problems with anything that I saw.
I thought the recommendations were good ones. I thought a lot of thoughtful consideration was given to the ordinance and to the current status of the program and issues that had been issues for quite some time. I think there was an attempt to address those. So I thought it turned out pretty well, and I thought the committee did a really good job they took a serious approach to reviewing the plan to come up with these recommendations. So all I can say is I support all the recommendations that were made, and I don't know how we proceed with.
Well,
This is just a review. Today is just a review of the report. So I don't know if there's specific actions that we're gonna have to take to adopt any changes.
Well, let's ruminate on it here for the next 30 days and see if we can come up with some possible solutions that all the board can agree on and look at implementing changes to make it for the better. I think we have an outstanding program.
I think we need to also be able to evaluate, down on one of the recommendations is to have either software, have staff be able to do it, if there's some kind of software available to do it, to perform the ongoing informal analysis of the program, or the options were that compared to retaining a financial professional to review the program's finances, and then or to create a spreadsheet or a system for staff to use to be able to do regular analysis of the program. So those are some of the options. I don't know, Amy, do you recall any other, significant issues?
No. The only other thing is the committee discussed ensuring that the township was in first lien position, which we have addressed. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about the applications that were previously in the program before we made some of those changes. But moving forward, we can make sure that that's being done.
Provided we stick with the program of a 99-year lease, the financial situation, at least it appears to be that we're in sound financial shape if we maintain the 99-year lease program. So we have the funding to be able to do that. There's been some discussion about, and I think it warrants some consideration in terms of comparing, have some kind of analysis done that compares maintaining 99-year leases as compared to lease buyouts, I guess is what they are, right?
Permanent easements.
Yeah, permanent easements, yes.
On the open space, for years, and that's what we've been looking, trying to get.
And then you're
towards
done.
more of- Yes.
You've paid the money, you're not paying for 99 years
And a lot of
anymore.
times we can get partnerships on that, and then the land's permanently preserved, because I
Right.
believe the intention of this was originally just to kind of get in there, lock up the land until we could get to a point where we could
Mhm.
potentially permanently preserve it. There's at least some of it where that's a possibility. And I read through this too, and it does, based on being on the board, and a lot of this is in line with things that we've discussed and where we've gone, and I'm glad there's been an independent board of various folks that have looked at everything and made additional recommendations. So I think we just need to figure out the process for getting these, like if we're gonna add these to the agenda, like the one under number 2, the Board of Supervisors should consider removing this objective from the ordinance. Well, to me, that seems pretty straightforward,
Mhm.
at least, so we could start knocking some of these off, I think, pretty quickly. And then the next one, the Board of Supervisors to seek a legal opinion on that item. Well, that would be pretty easy to do too.
Yeah.
So those two would be fairly straightforward.
I think that one of the other concerns was that the quality of land, of space that's being preserved, that the board have the ability to prioritize the spaces or the land that we are preserving.
You're talking about for a permanent easement.
Or even.
For the lease.
Or
I
even
mean,
for the lease.
It goes with the ability to say no, which I thought we always did have.
We do have that.
Well, that was one of the questions that there was at one point.
We may have to add some clarification
Yeah,
to that.
Right.
you
Mhm.
have the ability to do that. It's not specifically clarified in the ordinance what that process is.
So that's where we
think
should
it's
get the
more
legal
what the
and tighten
committee-
that up as well.
Yes.
And I think there's a real good reason
Oh,
to
yeah.
do that.
Yeah, because anybody could apply for it.
Well, it's just some properties, or there may be some properties that couldn't be developed even if you
Right.
wanted to.
Right.
But there's some properties that you can't develop, maybe in the current sense, but you might want to preserve because of significant wetlands or something else
Sure.
that links other areas together, so.
But it's just like with any application process, somebody's applying, so whoever
Right.
you're applying to, always, you would think would have the right to say yes or no, whether they're accepting that application, and I think that's valid for.
I think it was a fairly innocuous set of recommendations, so.
Right,
I
but I
think that-
think we should go through and get them addressed.
Patty, has the
Yes.
Open Space Board met this month?
No, we were supposed to meet yesterday, and I believe we didn't have a quorum.
We did not have a quorum.
Okay. Is that something we could pass? I don't know if everybody's seen these recommendations on the board or not.
We haven't met,
It
we
would be
haven't had
nice
an
if the
open
op-
space meeting.
Yeah, I was
until-
kinda hoping we
yeah.
did meet last night, so we could
I know,
discuss
that was
this and then bring
obviously
it,
going to
yeah,
be on the agenda.
yeah.
I would recommend that maybe we pass that report to the Open Space Board and see what their suggestions are, and then bring those forward to the Board of Supervisors to implement them.
Excellent, as long as we have a
Yeah.
process.
Yep.
By the way, I don't know whether, Patty, I should ask you, what is the total acreage we have in the open space program right now?
That'd probably be better to Amy.
It's 2,200.
Well, it's more than that with
Is it?
Joanne's, is it not, Brett?
It is.
And that's not open, we're not counting the state, that's just within the program, right? Because sometimes we
That's
say
just-
the open
yeah.
space we have within the
That's
township is
just
greater,
leases.
yeah.
All right, well, we'll figure that out. Maybe
Yep,
we
sorry,
can let the
Dave, we-
people know what we've got. No, I didn't. I thought maybe somebody might know off the top of their head, so. I knew it was over 2,000, but I wasn't sure
Yeah.
the exact number, acres. Okay, anything else on the report?
No.
All right, we're gonna move on to the consent agenda, which is to approve the payment of bills for the period of 6/18/2022 to 7/08/2022, and totaling $51,528.28 in the general fund, $71,520.75 in the fire protection fund, $75,834.17 in the open space preservation fund, $2,999.62 in the park and rec fund, and $6,111.36 in the liquid fuels fund. Do I hear a motion or an amendment of the motion or something?
I'll move that we approve the consent agenda.
Ron moves to approve. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Patty seconds. Any discussion by the board? Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. All right, next up, gonna take a few minutes here to have an executive session to discuss personnel. The board will be stepping in the back here for a couple of minutes, just to have a discussion, and we should be back shortly. things wrapped up as quickly as possible. Action items, we have employee evaluation review forms. I don't know if everybody's had a chance to take a look at those.
Were those linked?
They were linked. That, the only thing I would say about them is that, since I put them together, I actually borrowed the review forms from COG. And there's a few in there that we don't need. Which ones are they?
Is this similar, 'cause we had a pretty good one last time.
I think these are excellent.
Okay.
And there's self-assessment forms, self-evaluation or self-assessment forms as well. And I think the employees should have the opportunity to, because that really informs us in doing the reviews.
Field service staff was on,
Or was it,
field service staff.
Is there a place where we put our rating then?
was there one for public works? Or we're gonna, or the field service staff could be modified to create the, public works? There were some other ones in there that didn't make any sense.
Did you take them out?
Okay.
Oh, right, okay.
All right, so they're revised, good. So I'd like to use these forms to do the appraisals. What I thought about doing was, I would write them, but the board's gotta review them and approve them.
You mean the write-up for the actual evaluation?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm gonna be writing appraisals for the public works employees, early next month. I have to do it before the end of the probationary period.
Ron, I have a question though, on here, where the rating goes, you said this is the self-rating, is there a place then, I think on our last ones, there was 2 rating columns.
There's actually 2 forms
The one
here.
for oh, there's 2 different forms?
Yeah,
Okay, I saw
there's
Part B and
the
C.
self-evaluation questionnaire,
Yes,
and then there's the actual appraisal forms right there, performance evaluation report.
oh, I see.
And it's got all the different categories down there. It's got a section for office staff, it's got a section for field service, which is basically public works, I believe.
So that part's not self, that's.
That's the evaluation form. So the employees do their self-assessment, know that they tell you what they accomplished, because you need to have that. That's the meat of the appraisal. And then, I was gonna write the appraisals if somebody else wants to do it there. Yeah, I thought that I could do it, and then present it to the board for review and approval. If that works.
Do board members want a little more time to look at this, or? I hope nobody got too blindsided, but
Yeah, I don't think
if you
it's-
did, I don't want to put anybody under pressure, because we got another meeting in 2 weeks,
Yeah,
so.
I'll just read it the next date, but when we go over these, that has to be we don't go over those in public, right?
No, that's
exec
executive session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to have, whatever we decide, I'd like to have the decision made by early August so that I can.
Yeah. Everything I've seen in there, I'm okay with. But if others want to do a little more comprehensive review, I'm certainly okay with that.
We could modify these.
I'll make
I
a
mean.
point to read it in more detail
Okay.
tomorrow, Ron.
All right.
See.
All right, well, we'll just plan on doing,
But thank you.
doing this at the next meeting then.
So you want to table this for the?
Yes, table it till the next meeting, yeah, make sure everybody has a chance to, so we get this right, or as right as we can get it.
Yeah, if there's any comments, we should provide them to Ron before the meeting, so then next meeting we can approve it. Okay,
Yeah, emails work fine.
great.
All right, next up, work session topics, third-party services comparison.
Before we get
Wait.
there, Dave,
Oh.
we still have the Public Works labor job description amendment and the Public Works lead job description,
Yeah.
which I had to write. We had to have them. I guess we need to vote to approve these. Well, actually, the Public Works labor position that description's already approved. We had the 2 employees sign it.
Right.
I think
What,
we're
did
good
you
to go.
amend it?
We didn't amend that. I don't think, Brett, we didn't amend that at all, did we?
Yes, you amended just one line.
Okay.
The line where it talks about applying weed killer snow and ice materials, it used to say under roadmaster, and we broadened it to under appropriate supervision.
Okay.
As your new public works lead is actually who is certified to speak.
Right. I remember that now.
So that's it. It was just,
That's under laborer.
that's under the public works laborer, correct.
The other job description is for the Public Works lead, which is Jim Smith. I took what basically was the roadmaster's job description and revised it somewhat to create a part-time public works lead, because this is not a full-time position, and I don't consider that it will be a permanent position. But until such time as we have a roadmaster, I think we're gonna need a lead. And it seems to be working out pretty well, so. Jim reminded me that he needed to have a job description, so I wrote one and Brett got it completed. That's something, that's a new position, so is that something we need to vote to approve?
And Jim was previously under the category of public works laborer,
He was a seasonal worker,
Yeah.
right?
part-time.
Yeah, part-time.
But he got more experience than anybody.
Right, but I didn't know how he was classified before, if he was under the laborer.
So
Basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
So now he's the lead.
So since the public works labor was amended, you should approve it again, because it will need
Okay.
re-signed.
I don't know, are the board members prepared to do that tonight? Okay, so if somebody wants to make a motion, we'll proceed.
So I move that we amend the job description for the public works laborer as indicated by Ron and Brett.
Okay, Patty made the motion, do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Roseanne seconds. Any discussion by the board? Going to call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion approved. So the Public Works Laborer job description amendment is approved. And we got the Public Works lead job description. Anybody like to make a motion to put that into place?
I will move that we, appoint or institute the public works lead job description.
All right, Patty makes a motion. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
Chuck seconds. Any discussion by the board? Okay, I got a motion and a second, no discussion. I'll call for the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion approved. Okay, so the Public Works lead job description is approved as written. Okay, I think that'll take care of that. Work session topics, third-party services comparison.
I guess that's mine again. I thought it would be prudent for us when we talk about future with COG or future contracts, that we, if we're going to look at changes in the contracts, that we ought to look at alternate services, the services that we need, that we currently get from COG. We should have alternatives, or search for alternatives, to try to do an apples-to-apples comparison between the services provided by COG and what other services are available by other providers. So that's what that is in a nutshell. Because I think we should always, it's healthy to always look at alternatives to know what is available to us. And I think if we're going to negotiate with COG in the future, any contracts or things like that, that we should have that information available to us before we decide how we would approach COG with any kind of ideas for, any kind of contracts, alternative contracts. And that's what it amounts to. So it would be amounting to allowing the staff or directing the staff to do that kind of research.
And Ron, that would be specifically for, there's different things that we participate in COG, but as far as comparing with what it would cost to replace, are you talking like emergency management, code administration, planning? Those are the ones, we have to break it into
There's shore enforcement officer, which that's actually done by code administration, but that's a separate service.
Right, but I think it's lumped under code, right?
Yeah.
It probably is,
Yeah.
Or, because there's code.
Emergency management, planning, code administration.
And then COG general, the general membership of the COG
What do
there.
they call there's
Administrative,
administration,
yeah, administration,
code
right.
administration, emergency management, planning, and SCLO library.
Yep.
Those are the ones that we
And
participate in.
CNET's not under COG,
Correct.
I understand, so.
Yes, that's it. So see what services are out there and what they cost. You know, make sure that the scope of work is the same. Their abilities, their capabilities are the same. And see what that costs before we talk about, you know, not having a contract or revising a contract. I'd like to see what options we have. I think it's always worthwhile to do that, at least from time to time. I don't think we've done that for.
No, I don't think it's
like-
something we want to do every year, but I think it's good to have a baseline every now and then.
Mhm. That was my thinking on it.
I don't know if I'm sure the costs for the COG services are going up next year. I know we've used planning heavily this year because of the aforesaid development.
Mhm.
So, and they've been great, you know, as far as, you know, this year, what the the planning agency has done for us. I think they've really stepped it up. So, and then some of the other ones, I know emergency management has a function. We have to have emergency management. I don't know if it's the type of emergency management we want, if we want a different type of emergency management. I'm not sure what all the concerns are, you know, if we need to take a look at something else, or we're happy with it the way it is, or if we'd like something stepped up. Maybe there are items that they provide that are more important to us, and there may be items that are less important to us.
I think they did, and there's also state-required emergency management.
Yes.
What we have to have, so I know they're providing that.
Are we at the level of state minimum? Are we way above it? Is it, you know, where are we in things? And I'm sure they can provide that information to us. I know Warriors Mark and Franklin Township and I think Spruce Creek Township, they have a lady that does emergency management for them in conjunction with Huntington County. Now, we're obviously Center County, but I don't know what all they have to provide versus what we're getting for the money.
I think we can explore the question also with other townships. Warriors Mark, for example, see what they do.
Well, there's a whole rest of Center County too, that's, you know, Bellefonte Borough.
There's
What do
different-
they do?
Yep. So, I mean, I think we just need to see what our options are. Well,
Right,
that's really what
and
it
it's
is.
also not, there's different things too. I mean, besides cost, there's also efficiency, availability.
Quality.
Ease, quality.
Those are all important factors.
Also, less impact on staff,
Mhm.
that kind of stuff too.
Mhm.
So, as long as we're weighing it as a whole and not just, yeah.
I'm not proposing that it's gonna be easy, but I think that we need to see what's there. And it's a good exercise.
Okay.
But those are essential requirements: quality, responsiveness, professionalism. I mean, you have to have that. Our staff depends on it, so.
Okay, if there's nothing else on that topic, let's go on to supervisors' reports and comments.
Do we need to make a motion to direct the staff to begin
I
that
don't think
process?
so.
or-
I think we're all in agreement.
Okay.
that we
All right.
can take a look at it.
Okay.
We're not taking action on anything, we're just taking
Right.
a look at what options might be out there.
Right,
And maybe
and-
there's no option out there
And we
too,
have
so.
time, and we're through the
Yeah.
end of the year, or till we budget,
Yep,
or even longer.
Okay.
all right, well, I know that Patty and Roseanne both have reports for us tonight, and if anybody else has anything for the good of the order, so to speak, we'll add that on there.
I'll keep it short. My facilities meeting met beginning of the month, and basically, the Whitehall Regional Park is progressing. They're progressing on plans for the education building, that's Phase 2 at Millbrook Marsh. And then we talked about budget items, about the program plan. And then that's what we talked about in finance. So finance this morning, we reviewed the draft of the 2023 Center Region Council of Governments program plan. It's a very informative document, and it talks a lot about those services and, you know, so this is going to, now that it was approved by finance, it will be now sent to a few changes will be made. It's going to be sent to the printer, and it should be out before the general forum meeting on the 25th. The general forum meeting on the 25th of this month will be reviewing the program plan and I think also the CIP, which is the capital improvement and replacement plan. So those two documents, the goal is to get those two documents in front of general forum, okayed, approved by general forum, and then they'll go out, then they can come back to the municipalities to get our comments. Like this program plan, we'll get a spreadsheet with specific questions on items in here that they have, that they want input on. And then we'll need to provide that. So we're gonna have to have that probably on our agenda for the August 11th meeting.
Yes, I did speak to Eric today through email, and I did say that we would put that on the August 11th meeting, and Scott Binkley will be providing copies of that to the
Because-
office next week.
Good, because what we did in the past is when that spreadsheet came out, we all looked at it independently, put our comments in, and then at the meeting, we would collectively decide what we wanted to submit as a board, because they want one set of comments coming back from Half Moon, not 5. So there are collective comments on the program plan. And then once they have the final program plan and the final CIP, they'll provide those back to the municipalities, and then we can have those as points of reference when we're doing our budget. So that's why they're trying to get it all done and back to us, so that when we come to our budget time, we have those final documents.
Patty, you said the COG General Forum's on the 25th.
Yes,
That's not Monday, or is it?
it should be. It should
Okay.
be the fourth Monday,
Dave, you're thinking of when we were looking at
July
budget
25th.
meeting?
July.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I'm-
All right. Okay, appreciate that.
Sure.
Got my dates messed up.
I thought that at first too, and then I remembered that that's a different one.
Okay, 25th.
And that's pretty much, that was our main topic today.
Okay.
So.
And I'll keep it very short. I sat in on the safety meeting on Tuesday, and the bulk of the meeting was talking about purchasing or leasing a blocking vehicle for any roadside, highway, high-speed protection for the people in front in the accident. And the fire chief went through 3 different options, and there was one very clear option that they were recommending then back to the committee. But that was the bulk of the meeting. It was very short.
Nothing we have to take an action on.
No.
Okay.
There were 3 of us that had no say in what they were doing. We just listened.
Okay. Well, sometimes that's good.
Yes.
Anybody have anything else? For the good of the order. I do want to talk to, since our road crew's not here tonight, Mr. Beck, how did the paving go out there?
Getting stuff set up here for the next couple of weeks. There again, I always confuse the end of that road out there. We're gonna replace that pipe, but that one right off Smith Road there, I think that's Paul's Lane, where the pipe's sticking up.
Yep.
Talked to Chuck a while ago. I think he's got that scheduled for not next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday. Tear that out, replace the pipe, repave it the following day, do some pothole repair on that street. And then the other end of Smith Road, I think that's coming up next couple weeks. It's drainage stuff that we're gonna do some paving down there. And then we try to work in, I wanna try to get some of these dips and stuff in certain streets, just kinda touch things up while we're going through the summer here, so.
I saw crack filling was done.
Yeah, they got some of that done. They got the paving done the other day. I think they shouldered the roads today. So it's coming together. Got the asphalt projects done as far as the big stuff paving. That's all done for the year. So now it's in-house things we wanted to take care of while the weather's fit and before